Well, I'm sorry I didn't stream yesterday. To be perfectly honest, I didn't do quite enough research, didn't take quite enough notes on the American Rescue Plan. I was very, very, very uninterested in doing anything. But, I've got a little more for you guys today. And so let's go over it. I just washed my hair. That's why it's all looks the way it is. I don't use a lot of gel or anything. Anyway, sorry, I gotta rearrange my ball sack. Alright, start off where I left off. Section 3031. Alright. $7,600,000,000 grants for Public Health Service Act and Native Hawaiian Healthcare Improvement Act to provide vaccines, to track COVID-19, to establish mobile COVID units, to expand healthcare infrastructure, community education of COVID-19, and to cover past expenses, right? And past expenditure, right? So anybody this is covering for in terms of these acts, right, go and get reimbursed for all the money they spent on equipment and stuff. Section 3032. $800 million to carry out Title III of the Public Health Service Act. All right. Section 3033. $200 million to carry out Section 846 of the Public Health Service Act. Section 3034. $330 million to teaching healthcare centers with graduate medical residency programs. Right, so these are healthcare centers where basically what this is going to do is it's going to kind of provide, right, to provide an increase to the per resident amount, 10,000. So I'm guessing what this is basically is it's talking about healthcare centers and residency. People who come out of medical school, they got to do residency. And so this is to go to those healthcare centers to help cover those costs. Ooh, where am I at? All right, Section 3035. $1,800,000,000 to provide vaccines and protective equipment for prisons, jails, and detention centers, as well as care facilities. Right? Residential care facilities, psychiatric hospitals, long-term care facilities, those kind of things. Including the prisons, the detention centers, the tribal jails, the prisons. Yeah, I guess I said prisons a couple times there. 3036. $50 million. Expenses in making grants and contracts under Section 101 of Public Health Service Act. So that's literally just to cover the costs of granting awards and grants, to grant more money. Apparently that costs money, which I guess it does. So you got employers, but so $50 million, not very much in terms of what we've seen in this bill here. Section 3037. $425 million services for children in the care of personnel employed by Department of Health and Human Services. Right, so this is, like it says, just to pay for preparing and providing child care and education services, healthcare services, and other necessary services for children in the care of personnel employed with the Department of Human Health Services. That's including contracts, cooperative agreements, or grants. So I'm guessing that's a wide range of people that it covers. Oh boy, yeah, this is riveting stuff, I know. See, Section 3038, and that's $5 million for the Inspector General to oversee these sections, or this section at least, right? And to prepare for, and respond to COVID-19. But that's, not necessarily what the Inspector General is doing. He's just overseeing those activities that prepare for, and respond to it. So that's what it is. Section 3041. $6,094,000,000 for Indian health programs and expenses related to potable water, right? So, as you can see here, telehealth infrastructure is included in this. I really just thought that the potable water part was kind of the most important thing, but in terms of my notes, but also it's talking about prepare, promote, distribute, administer COVID-19 vaccines, trace infections, additional services, reimbursements, mental and behavioral health services, 10 million just for the expenses relating to potable water delivery. All right. Yeah, I gotta say, this stuff it's a pain. It's a pain going through this, I'm not gonna lie. Section 3051. $1,750,000,000 for mental health. Just to carry out these parts of the Public Health Service Act with respect to mental health. That's what it is. All right. Section 3052, the next section, is the $1,750,000,000 for substance abuse. All right, it's to carry out this part of the Public Health Service Act with respect to substance abuse. All right. What we got? Section 3053, 80 million, reducing and addressing mental health among healthcare professionals. Because healthcare professionals are, they got problems too, right? And so they really just want strategies for reducing and addressing suicide, burnout, and mental and behavioral health conditions. And you can be guaranteed, I think, that if they were to, make universal health care for everybody in this country, that burnout for healthcare professionals would be much worse than it currently is. And, it's kind of tough to address burnout. Like, the only way you can really address burnout is to have more professionals on staff, which, would be essentially, you got to make it more advantageous to become a healthcare professional. Right. If somebody becomes a doctor, but they can't be paid a lot for their job, then they're going to burn out very quickly. But you're trying to set up a situation where everybody goes in for everything at any time, you're going to have a lot of burnout. And that's kind of what it seems like. You're talking about not even really in respect to COVID-19 in this section. Section 3054, a measly $20 million for national education and awareness campaign directed at health professionals and first responders and their employers. All right, so this is just $20 million for a campaign to let them know that about the risk factors, and to spot those risk factors in themselves. And this is really addressing. This is not necessarily addressing, but it's kind of along the same lines as the suicide, burnout, mental and behavioral health conditions, right? Where they just want to have a campaign to let people know, like doctors and first responders and the people in the medical community, how to spot their own medical issues and mental health issues. All right. So, Section 3055 is $40 million to promote mental and behavioral health among healthcare providers. And $20 million for the campaign, $80 million to come up with strategies to reduce and address that stuff, and then another $40 million to improve it. I mean, I feel like that could all kind of be put into one section, but whatever. That's me. I don't have much experience writing laws. Section 3056. Wait, no. 3055. Wait, no. Yeah, 3056. Just 30 million to support overdose prevention and syringe programs, plus harm reduction for survivors with respect to drug misuse, and to reduce the negative personal and public health impacts of substance abuse. All right, and so it's really just granting funds that the secretary chooses, the organizations they choose to for that money to go to. 3057, just 50 million to address behavioral health needs worsened by COVID-19. Right? I mean, and the lockdown wouldn't really cost the government much, but whatever. 3058, 10 million to address violence-related stress. Well, I mean, to be sure, they really just mean problem of high risk or medically undeserved people who have experienced violence-related stress. So it's not just anybody who's experienced violence-related stress. It's medically underserved people. Oh man, I mean, like, I don't have anything against helping people deal with violence-related stress. It's just that, like, I would just rather the government kind of be like, yo, like, we have parks, like, go for a walk. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's just why it's only 10 million. And just gonna be like, have somebody sitting at a desk all day. Everybody that walks in is just like, yeah, just go for a walk. Just walk around outside. Or, let me, I don't know, smoke weed. Like what am I supposed to say? What am I supposed to do? I guess I'm not trained in this. Know anybody that is? I'd be interested to hear, like, what it is that they do on a day-to-day basis, or that job, and how they address this. I mean, I'm curious what they mean by medically underserved. Right. Anyway, section 3059. 30 million to advance wellness and resilience in education. Once again, it's only 30 million, so they're not planning on doing too much there, obviously. 3059A, just 20 million to carry out section 520E and 520E2 of the Public Health Service Act. 3059B, 100 million to carry out section 756 of the Public Health Service Act. It's just that simple. They really refer to the Public Health Service Act, and they really refer to a lot of these acts that have, like, I guess, been in place for a certain amount of time, and just, like, just give them more money to address these sections. Right, 3061. 20 million. Enabling American health benefit exchanges established under the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act to modernize and update any system, program, or tech that they utilize. Right. Yeah, that's this one. Right, and these exchanges were set up under the Affordable Care Act. Right, that's under Obama. Right, and for purposes of enabling to modernize their systems. I mean, that's pretty much all there is. Not very much. 20 million. So they don't plan on doing too much with this, as you can tell. Section 30101. Medicaid. And this is huge. This is a giant thing. What all I wrote down was amends the Social Security Act. All it really does is amend the Social Security Act to include the American Rescue Plan of 2021. This bill here, right? And as you can see here, by striking cancer XV and inserting cancer, comma, parentheses XV. It was originally cancer, parentheses XV, but they just put in a comma in there. Like you can see, you see yourself the kind of BS that somebody has to kind of wade through, looking for anything that's like of in particular interest. And so when I just, seeing this stuff, I'm just like, okay, this is a giant section that they've got in here as compared to a lot of the other ones, because it's not the biggest one, but it's still pretty solid in size. And so I'm just like, amends the Social Security Act, because it's not of too much interest in terms of everything that's inside it. It's just inserting this, amending this, getting rid of this, adding this. It's just like, okay. Section 3102. Section 1902E of the Social Security Act is amended, affecting Medicaid coverage for pregnant women. So if that's something that you care about, you can look into it some more. Going through it, I don't know what the difference is between this and the old one. Right? They refer to state plans a lot, and I really don't know what changes were made here, because I've just started doing this whole thing of reviewing what kind of laws were being passed through Congress. Section 3013 amends Social Security Act, and it basically just kind of adds in this except 30 days prior of release. So from this, what I could tell is that inmates were not able to be insured under Medicaid for while they were inmates, and it seems like even after a period of time, like after they were inmates. Now, what this seems to do is it just kind of creates the exception where if it's 30 days before an inmate is released, they can get Medicaid. However, I guess once they're released, they should be able to get it, right? Like, you've done your time, you can get your Medicaid. So, yeah. So it's just making it possible that somebody can, I guess, apply or receive Medicaid benefits 30 days prior to being released. Right. Section 3014. Social Security Act is amended, and $15 million for grants to states. And they talk about community-based mobile crisis intervention services in this. But like, I've gone over so many sections now that provide for these mobile units to go out. And so once again, they're just amending the Social Security Act of this. They're just kind of adding this into the Social Security Act, essentially. And they only really provide $15 million. So, like, compared to everything else I've looked at, can't possibly be that big of a deal. So they're just doing $15 million. And there doesn't seem to be any laws in there that, like, seem messed up or illegal, at least as far as I can tell. Section 305. Amends Social Security Act. Yeah, it's how can a law be illegal? Maybe, one of the questions someone might be asking. Well, they can be unconstitutional, right? Like, just passing a law doesn't mean that that law is a legal law, right? Like, for instance, I guess you want to talk about just like in terms of the civil rights kind of area, where in the South they passed a law where it affected who could vote, right? And so in order to keep freed slaves from being able to vote, at least like a couple of generations past, I guess it was called the grandfather clause, where it was like, you can vote if your grandfather was able to vote. And so there were plenty of black people whose grandfathers couldn't vote, and so then they couldn't vote. Now, that's an example of an illegal law, right? It was overturned by the Supreme Court, but that's just one of those things, is these laws can be passed, and people follow them, but it takes somebody opposing the law and getting it brought to the Supreme Court's attention in order for the law to get struck down, right? Or at least a federal court to strike the law down. And if it continues on to the Supreme Court, then the Supreme Court's got to do it. But if the Supreme Court doesn't do it, then, it's just going to stay the way it is. Now, where are we at now? So I'm totally lost. 3105 amends Social Security Act. Section 3106, Social Security Act is amended. 3107, Social Security Act is amended. 3108, Social Security Act is amended. However, there was something interesting in this one. States shall implement one or more of these things, and it's A through B. What are we at? Hold on. 3108. Oh, yeah. A through P. Come on, A through P. Right. This is what I should have. I didn't put down 2 A through P. Right. Required implementation of certain activities. The state shall implement one or more of the following activities to enhance, expand, or strengthen home and community-based services under the state Medicaid program. Right. Now, what's interesting there is the language is states shall, which means they will have to basically do something. And so they will have to implement one or more. Right. And if you look at these options here, it's like increase rates for home health agencies. So states are going to have to increase those rates. Right. States will have to provide paid sick leave, paid family leave, and paid medical leave for home health workers and direct support professionals. Provide hazard pay, overtime pay, shift differential pay. Provide home community-based services. Purchase emergency supplies and equipment. Recruit new workers. Support family care providers with needed supplies and equipment. Pay for training, pay for technologies, prepare information and educational materials, pay for American Sign Language and other language interpreters to assist in providing home and community-based services to eligible individuals, pay for retainer payments, pay for expenses deemed appropriate by the Secretary, support transitions from institutional settings and congregate community settings at homeless shelters or other temporary housing for individuals, assist eligible individuals in receiving mental health services and necessary rehabilitative service to regain skills lost during the COVID-19 public health emergency period. Now, the thing about skills is you don't really lose them. Like if you were a welder, right, and you had learned the skill of welding, you don't just lose that skill because COVID-19 comes around, right? Like, I picked up the skill of how to make pizza from scratch. Think I'm ever going to lose that? I might lose the recipe, but I've made it so much and so often that, like, I don't even look at the recipe anymore. I just, get the ingredients and I just do this stuff. I just make the pizza. And so what's interesting is this language is just like one or more. Well, if I was a state, I would pick one of these last ones, O or P, right? I wouldn't pick any of the ones that say pay for, purchase, provide paid stuff. I would pick one of these, assist eligible individuals in receiving mental health services and necessary rehabilitative service to regain skills. I'd probably pick that one, right? Or assist eligible individuals who had to relocate to a nursing facility or institutional setting from their homes during the COVID-19 emergency, who were isolated in their homes during the period, who moved into non-institutional settings as a result of such period, which I don't know who the hell is moving out of their house into a nursing facility because of COVID, right? If anything, people moving out of nursing facilities and into homes with like their families. But I would pick one of those, right? Because it says one or more, and I have to pick one. I'm certainly not going to pick any of the ones where it makes me have to pay for a bunch of shit. Like, so okay. So the language in that one's interesting. But moving on to the next one, that's I guess not as interesting. 250 million. Social Security Act is amended. This is section 3109. 250 million. Social Security Act is amended to establish a strike team to respond to COVID cases in nursing facilities. Now that's actually kind of interesting, right? Now, the strike team is, I'm guessing, healthcare professionals. However, it doesn't seem to say anything about a strike team being healthcare professionals, but they're going to be deployed to nursing facilities in states that have diagnosed or suspected cases of COVID-19 among residents or staff for the purposes of assisting with clinical care, infection control, or staffing during the emergency period. So I'm guessing they're healthcare individuals. If not, then that's interesting. Language, strike team. Now, next one, 3201. Social Security Act is amended. Basically, I think in this section, it just provides kind of coverage for COVID vaccine testing and treatment. Right? It goes into like prohibiting cost sharing between, like, I guess, the state things. It's just another amendment to the Social Security Act. Section 3301. Yeah. Oh wait. Okay. No. There's another one. 3202. This one is Social Security Act is amended. Not much to say here, except it seems to have almost the same language as that earlier section that was talking about amending the Social Security Act with respect to pregnant women. Just, I don't know. Just gonna be honest with you. Section 3301 is somewhat interesting. Or it's 100 million to address health outcome disparities from pollution and COVID-19. Right? 50 million of that, so half of that's going for grants and activities under the Clean Air Act. Right? And the other half is going to address environmental justice in minority populations and low-income populations. Section 219 of Executive Order 14008, titled Tackling the Climate Crisis at Home and Abroad. The Environmental Protection Agency's Environmental Justice 2020 Action Agenda. I mean, it's only 100 million, so you know it's just kind of like a money grab, in my opinion. You know, it's funny how they toss in COVID-19 in there, like pollution and COVID-19, as if that's gonna just, the COVID-19 part is what they're using to get all this passed, to get all this money spent. Which people get what they vote for, I suppose. Unless, people didn't really vote for him, in which case it's very interesting. But, whatever. There's enough people voted, I think, for them, such that, whatever, right? Whatever. If you fuck it up, they'll probably move out of the country. And then those of us left behind will just clean up and fix everything. And then when they try to come back, be like, fuck you. Fuck you. 3302. That's section 3302. 4,500,000. No, that's 4 billion. Excuse me. It's 4,500,000,000 for funding the Low Income Home Energy Assistance Act. That's something that has been around since 1981. So they're just put more money in it. Just put more money in it. Section 3303, 500 million to owners and operators of public water systems or treatment works to reduce rates for low-income households. Right. So this is just to effectively pay the water utility system to reduce rates for people. So it's, you could call it subsidizing, but it's not really subsidizing. It's more like just completely paying for it. 'Cause in my opinion, whenever something's subsidized, it actually ends up kind of being more expensive on the other end, right? Like, for instance, well, at least for some people, right? I mean, I just kind of go back to my going to college, right? And how people who were in state, like citizens of New Mexico, their tuition was a lot lower, but people who were out of state had to pay like a ton more, right? So then, even though like they were getting money from the federal government to reduce education rates for people of the state, they went ahead and just raised tuition rates for people coming out of state. I mean, it's not like it was a cheap place. Honestly, it was BS because I was trying to learn engineering and they're like requiring me to take like exercise classes. Right? And what's funny is you couldn't really use the gym unless you were in an exercise class because there was like every half hour was a new exercise class and nobody else could use the gym during which the exercise class was going on. So it's just like just a way, I guess, to employ PE teachers. Just a way to employ people who otherwise wouldn't have jobs because nobody would want to take those classes because they're actually there to learn something else. That's my opinion. Fucking BS. Anyway, where am I at? Right, section 3311. Just $50 million for the Consumer Product Safety Commission. Right. So this is to kind of watch out for products that are susceptible to COVID-19, right? Like, I guess they mean food products, right? They do have definitions in here where COVID-19 products whose risks have been significantly affected by COVID-19. It doesn't say food products, but like, I don't know what the hell kind of products they could possibly be talking about when they say whose risk have been significantly affected by COVID-19, like what, or whose sales have materially increased during the COVID-19 emergency period as a result of the pandemic. Like, what the fuck? They talking about masks? So it's like people are buying a lot more of it. So it's like, okay, we need to pay somebody $50 million in order to monitor these things. It's just the expansion of the bureaucracy. It's just expanding the bureaucracy. It's not like they're actually going to do anything except just increase costs for consumers because, this product, sorry, it's got to be inspected. And, guess who's actually going to end up paying for the inspection? I don't think the federal government's going to do it for free. Right? We saw where there was an earlier section that talks about reducing inspection costs for food processors, or just reducing the overtime costs for food inspectors, right? Now it's like, okay, but they're not doing that. They're not inspecting anything for free from the federal government. They're just not, right? So I imagine there's going to be some kind of a fee. If anything, the product's going to be held up and the supply of it is going to be restricted. And while demand's going to remain the same, if supply is restricted, then costs go up. Like, that's just how economics work. But whatever, just start growing your own food. Get your shit from someplace else. Get your products from someplace else, or don't buy it. Right? Like, I just that's the thing about Americans is they can find a way around anything. Right? And the federal government is going to be like, oh, there's a black market. We got to do something about it. It's like, good luck. good fucking luck, because people aren't going to assist you. Like, you kind of need their help when doing things like that, and when you put them in a position where, like, doing so is going to make it harder for them to actually get what they want and stuff, then, good luck getting the American public on your side. Just good luck. Anyway, monitoring internet websites for offering of the sale of these new, or when they say violative consumer products, particularly COVID-19 products, they're talking about products that haven't necessarily been approved by like the FDA or by the federal government in terms of treating like COVID-19, right? And so they want to get rid of those and monitor like internet websites for getting rid of that stuff. Now, I think it's interesting that they using COVID-19 to kind of get this in there, but I can imagine that being expanded in the future, because that's all they ever do. They get their foot in the door, and then boom, oh, we got to do all this other stuff too. It's like, no, you don't. No, you don't. Just expanding the bureaucracy. It's like, no, we got to do this. No, you don't. Anyway, so let's just move on to the next one, because part of the reason why I didn't do a stream yesterday was because I just didn't have enough like in my notes, because I just didn't like sit down and read through this stuff yesterday, because I was just like, I'm tired, screw this, and I kind of just played video games and learned how to better like model like things for this animation. I guess it's a movie that I'm going to come up and make. I'm going to try to make. And so I did that kind of a lot today too. I just played a lot of games, and then was learning how to basically model or create models that I plan to animate later on. And I found a very, very helpful guy on YouTube who very knowledgeable. And so I did a lot of that today, and not so much of this, because this is a lot to dredge through. Like, it's a lot. And where are we at? Okay, section 3312. This is 7,599,000,000. It's amazing they just didn't go to 600 million there, right? Like, what stopped them at 599? Anyway, to establish the Emergency Connectivity Fund, right? To purchase equipment or advanced telecommunications and information services for schools and libraries in the case of an emergency. 7 billion. Like, who do you think they're going to buy that equipment from? I don't think they're going to be small businesses that they're going to buy from. I think they're going to buy from the big businesses that ended up donating a lot to their campaigns. And that's why I think it's 7,599,000,000. That's why I think. Anyway, section 3321. And then just a measly 3 million for oversight by the Inspector General. You notice it's like 5 million. Right, let's see that old one. Where's that other one? It wasn't a less amount, but I guess that's how they decide whether or not the Inspector General is going to pay too much attention to certain things in terms of oversight. Right? Like, so section 3038, it was 5 million for oversight for the Inspector General, and that was regarding like human health services, like things that actually like, COVID-19 related stuff, like actual COVID-19 related stuff, right? Like in terms of vaccines, protective equipment, and healthcare centers, and Health Service Act, and mobile COVID units, and stuff like that. But when it comes to 7,599,000,000 to buy equipment and advanced telecommunications and information services for schools and libraries, they're only giving the Inspector General 3 million for oversight. Right? I guess that's basically how they do it, right? They decide that, like, oh, we're gonna, just give you a little bit, and that's kind of like how the Inspector General knows that he's not going to be able to actually do this, right? He's not going to be able to do this as much as those other things. So he's going to be like, okay, I just won't even put like my time into that, because I can only draw from 3 million there. Whereas on these other things, I can draw from 5 million, right? So I think that's just curious how they're like, the inspector general only needs 3 million for oversight of this activity. Yeah, so in other words, they don't really think oversight for that activity is as important. Oh, and that's all I got. That's all I got. Because holy crap, this is such a pain in my mind. All right. But we're at section 4001 now. Oh, man. So we're getting into some of the juicier stuff. What's interesting is I still haven't gotten into the section where they're talking about like individual like impact payments to people, to American citizens. Right? I still haven't come across that. And I'm like a third of the way through this. Like more than a third of the way through this. And that still hasn't been mentioned yet. So I want to know when I get to that. I can't wait to actually get to that. Right? As you can see, this next section is Title 4 for the Committee on Financial Services. Subtitle A, Defense Production Act of 1950. Like, oh my goodness. We've already gone through billions and millions, all kinds of random stuff. Things where they just kind of like pollution and COVID-19, like they're just using COVID-19 to expand the bureaucracy. Right? We've seen it, right? Like financial aid for certain schools to pay the tuition and COVID-19 costs. Like it's just like this is just a way for them to get money to their people that they've set up, like family members, friends, bureaucracy, which is just made up of just a nice little connected group of people. You know, if you want to get rich in this country, you don't come up with a product that everybody wants, although that will get you very rich. What you do is you get the government to pay for everything. So that way, you don't have to actually spend any of your own money, right? So that your own money kind of just grows and you just get the government to pay for everything for you. That's how you do it, right? Fucking ridiculous. Anyway, that's all I've got in terms of the American Rescue Plan today. I gotta say, this COVID-19, I can see why they've made it out to be such a horrible thing, right? They've made it out to be such a horrible thing because A, they wanted Trump out of office. They wanted to blame it all on him. B, they wanted to expand their bureaucracy. C, they wanted to get money to people that they I guess missed out on getting money over the last 4 years. Right? You know, people who've been so dependent on the government for so long, right? When somebody comes along and all of a sudden they can't get the money that they're so used to getting, you know, it's like, yo, you gotta help me out. You gotta, where's the money? Where's my money? It's like, what do you mean? It's not your money. It's the taxpayers' money. I know it's the taxpayers' money, but where's my part of it? Right? Where's my piece of the pie? Like, don't worry. As soon as we get somebody else in office, you'll get more than you need. Like, oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Oh, man. But yeah, just all I fucking see is just like relying on these old laws that they had passed, amending them, permanently increasing the amounts of money that are going to be expended in those programs. Things that have nothing to do with COVID-19. Things that have nothing to do with job losses. Like, things that have absolutely nothing to do with anything that's part of the lockdowns, really. I mean, sure, they're talking about mental health, suicidal thoughts and stuff like that, and they're going to address that. They're going to address that, not by lifting any lockdown measures and allowing people to work and see family and friends and ending the fear campaign. Nothing like that. No. Because, you know, they need people to be, you know, afraid of the COVID-19 virus. Like, I'm sorry. It's just not that big a deal. It's just not. Like, Like whenever they show people on the news that are like, oh, these people were infected with it, and healthcare providers were afraid they'd die. Like I saw this in like the UK. It was like this story about like this couple that was in the hospital, and they like got married like in the hospital because they were afraid that like one of them was gonna die, right? And they weren't old. They weren't super old. They were like, I don't know, 30s, 40s, somewhere around there. But they were massively obese. It's like, yo, I feel like you got some bigger problems than just COVID-19, yo. But they're fine. They survived, right? And it's just like, like people the jokes used to be about like how fat America was. And honestly, yeah, you can pull up like a county map of the United States in terms of like obesity, uh, and how it like affects like people and stuff. And yeah, there's a huge amount of obese people. What's interesting though is on that county map that I saw, I don't have it up now. I guess it wouldn't take me long to find it. But California and New York had very low obesity rates. But the South and Texas, just like huge, massive obesity rates. Right? But during this whole COVID-19 thing, California and New York, like really hard measures, like shut everything down. Everybody's gonna die. Texas, like, nah, people need to work. People need to be able to feed themselves and their families. They're not gonna rely on the government here. It's just like, oh, well, you guys should have, because you got all the obese people. Well, no, our obese people can go outside for a walk, right? That'll help them. I mean, we got so much humidity down here that, like, a virus does not survive in the lungs very long at all, particularly one that may or may not have been created in a lab that is used to lab conditions, right? So yeah, very short stream today because I did not put very much into it. I'm not gonna lie. I just, after getting hit with all the BS that I've already been hit with going through this thing, like, don't get me wrong, it makes me laugh. It makes me freaking laugh how they're like pollution and COVID-19. And it's like, so you've really been meaning to do this for pollution, but pollution hasn't actually been that bad of a problem necessarily. What's interesting about it is like low income areas, or like not like, so property that doesn't cost very much for a reason, right? Typically because it's in a bad area. It may be close to like an industrial sector of the city, right? And people don't really want to live there, But like other people are like, yo, we'll live there, right? Because they don't want to necessarily have to travel like a long distance in order to get to work. But like, you can find places that are not near industrial sectors that are very far outside the city, mind you, very far outside the city, but like a nice property, no pollution whatsoever. I know I had to drive through property like that on my way to this contract job that I was doing. Not last year, but the year before last year. And it was very nice property out there. But, no pollution. Just, a couple hours outside the city, that's all. And yeah, traffic was a pain in the ass, right? Driving there, not so much, because typically everybody's coming inside the city, and I'm already kind of inside the city. So like in the mornings, traffic going outbound is not very bad at all. And then traffic coming inbound, like, not very bad. Like there would be some places, right? And there'd be like people driving like wildly all over the road and stuff because the inbound traffic, nobody's going inbound, everybody's going outbound at that time, like after the job was done, like 5 o'clock, Not really the job was done because it was a 2 or 3 week job. But yeah, you can find it. You can find property that's But I guess, it's going to be super cheap, right? So maybe if, you weren't such a cheapskate that you don't have to live in pollution, because I'll bet you, because I mean, like, I've heard things like this from my own father, right? Just like rationale for like getting something that's very cheap, right? And it's kind of just like, you're just a cheap ass. It's just like, whoa. No, you're just a fucking cheap ass, aren't you? It's like, we can deal with a little pollution, right? It's like, but daddy, my cough. Just here, breathe in some steam. put your head over the dinner that's being cooked right now. Boiling pot of noodles. Just breathe in that for a minute, and don't cough on the food. Like, so, shit like that, right? Some people they can rationale like suffering through something in order to save on something else. But sit there and be like, oh, people are kind of forced to pick those places. And it's like, everybody makes decisions, cost benefit analysis of what they do when they do it, where they do it at. Everybody does. So this is one of those things. But anyway, that's all I really got. I want to just remind everybody about the $7,599,000,000 that's going to buying equipment and advanced telecommunication and information services for schools and libraries for an emergency period, and the Inspector General is only getting $3 million to oversee the operation instead of like $5 million to oversee the other actually like COVID related provisions. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for following. Thanks for watching. This video will be up on YouTube. I guess by tomorrow. It takes a solid amount of time to process, and I have started putting just like the smaller clips on Rumble, but I don't even know what's going on over there. It stood at like 14% processing for like more than a day. Like, I went to sleep and woke up, and it's still like said 14% processed. I'm just like, what the hell? But yeah, I once again, like, I didn't do a stream yesterday because I was kind of tired, and actually I slept pretty well today. And I mean, like, I've just been forgetting to turn off my monitor, and my computer just sometimes wakes me up at like 3-4 in the morning all the damn time. I think it's set to do that. It's a Microsoft powered computer, and I'm getting kind of sick of Microsoft, and it's like sleep screens where it's got like a different picture of something, and then it's got like something on it that's like basically an advertisement. Yeah. Anyway, that's all I got. Enjoy your evening or afternoon, day, morning, whatever you're watching this. And you just keep an eye out on things, and if you see anything in here that you yourself can benefit from, go ahead, do it. I'm not one of those people that's like, oh, don't take money from the government or anything like that, or else everybody's got to pay for it in terms of inflation. I'm like, more like, if they're doing it, if they're just handing out money, by all means, go and grab you some. Go and grab you some. I'm all for it, right? Just overwhelm the healthcare system. Overwhelm the welfare system. Just be like, oh, yeah, just keep printing money. Money printer goes burr. Yeah. Have a good one. Take care.